Hello and welcome to the first hour of Digital Workplace Group 24. We've got, yes, you guessed it, 24 hours ahead, and we're so glad you could join us. I'm Paul Miller, and I'm delighted to be joined by my co-host for this hour, Dana Leeson. Hi, Dana. Nice
Hi,
to
Paul.
see you there.
Oh, it's lovely to see you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so on the 26th and 27th of February 2019, you and I were in London hosting a few hours of Digital Workplace Group 24 then.
Yes.
It's been quite a period since then, on all levels, hasn't it?
It really, really has. I can't believe it was that long ago. It feels like yesterday, but then it also feels like years ago.
I know. It's amazing. And it's lovely to have you here, because I know that, on a personal level for you, it's been a challenging year, to put it mildly, and it's great to be able to co-host with you. You're a really wonderful, inspirational person, and I couldn't pick a better person to co-host the first hour. So, this hour, and we've got a theme for each of the hours based on the Decade of Courage Manifesto. And this hour's theme is the agile organization. And our guests, I'm delighted to say, are Robert Rigo, strategist and architect, digital workplace and digital experiences at Consid AB, and well known to people after his career at Volvo Cars. And it's great to have you joining us today, Robert.
Thank you, Paul. It's great to be here in this fabulous event that I'm really, really fond of.
Yeah, and you're joining us from Sweden, I think?
Yeah, I'm from Sweden.
That's great, great. So great to have you here, and also to be joined by our other guest for the hour, Jesper Ambrosius, who is the head of Lego Workplace Experience at, you guessed it, Lego. And Jesper, lovely to have you on the show, and it was delightful to do the podcast with you not that long ago, and great to have you here today, Jesper.
Oh, thanks for having me, Paul. I also enjoyed the conversation last time. It was very inspirational. So looking forward to the next hour for sure.
Good. And anybody who wants to go to Digital Workplace Impact or go to the DWG site, you can listen to the great conversation that Jesper and I had. So before we get started, I'd like to introduce our producer for this hour, Sky Crawford, and she'll be explaining how we connect. And over to you, Sky.
Oh, thank you very much, Paul. So as we begin this hour of Digital Workplace Group 24, please take a look at the bottom right corner of your screen, and you'll see the WebEx Q&A panel. Please use this if you have any questions or comments for our studio guests or hosts or DWG or industry experts during the show. If you need any assistance with any of your technical or audio issues, you can please use the chat panel, and you just need to contact web support directly, and they will be able to resolve your query. And up on the screen right now is just a few more information about that. We also want to let the Twitter users know that they can use the hashtag DWG24. Again, that's DWG24 if you would like to join the Twitter conversation about the event and this hour's topics. We're also on Instagram at digital_workplace group. Why not follow us and let us know what your digital workplace looks like using the hashtag again, DWG24. And if you've lost audio or visual, there on the screen right now is just the way to contact web support to log back in. So back to you, Dana.
Great. Thank you, Sky. So also joining us for this hour is Luke Mepham. Luke and I first met in 2011 at an intranet conference, and Luke has over 20 years' experience working in IT, and in particular has worked with Microsoft 365 since the very beginning. Whilst Luke is a techie, he is one of the few who can explain how the technology can benefit both the workplace and its people. And it's one of the reasons why he's my go-to person when I'm faced with the Digital Workplace program. Thankfully, I don't have to go far, as we do live together. So he specializes in supporting communications, HR, and the technical teams in the introduction, strategy, management of collaboration, messaging, and identity products. Welcome to the show, Luke.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Hi, Dana. It's great to be here.
Excellent. So, this question I wanted to ask you. So if you hadn't done this career, what would you have done? What were you wanting to do with your life?
Or what would I want to do with my life? I don't know. I mean, if I could have done absolutely anything, I think I'd have liked to sort of taken my family, as you know, are half science, half kind of mystic and arty, and I really feel like I could have gone hunting for religious relics or something, a kind of modern day Indiana Jones, but maybe not quite such a misogynist.
Wow, that's a fantastic answer. And by the way, Dana and Luke, we're going to ask that question of every single person who comes on the show. So Dana's not just picking on you because you happen to live together. But that's a fantastic answer. So, it makes me intrigued by your family, Luke.
Oh, they're an intriguing family. I think Dana can vouch for that. Yeah.
They are. Okay.
Great. So with that, I'm going to bring in our first studio guest, Robert Rigo. So as I say, Robert is a specialist in digital workplace, digital experiences. He spent quite a lot of time at Volvo Cars and Saab. And since you came on DWG 24 last year, I think you were then in-house at Volvo. And what was your role when you were at Volvo, Robert?
I had some great, fantastic years at Volvo Cars. I was the owner of the digital workplace. I owned the whole experience from just not delivering the technical tools, but also the employee digital experience of Volvo Cars. So we had Volvo Cars being a great company when it comes to actually knowing what to do to their employees to make them more efficient and make them more happy in the line of work. So I had fantastic years at Volvo Cars.
Great. And, what do you think? Obviously, this is an extraordinary year in the world of work. And I think probably the world of work is one of the places where we've probably had more certainty in the early days of the extent of the changes that COVID-19 has brought. What do you think this year has meant in terms of digital workplace transformation?
Well, I think this year has actually made us accelerate and transform us, and I would like to go into that area here and just to see this is a pandemic event that causes us to really reconsider, really imagine every sense of our work and how we work together, and what technologies do we use to create energy together when we're not in the same space. And that is really interesting to see how different companies come on and tackle this challenge.
So, what are you seeing in the organizations you're working with, or with organizations like Volvo Cars that you were previously at? What's the kind of specific changes that you've seen so far, and what things are they kind of struggling with?
Yeah, well, let me share with you some information regarding this. I don't know. I like the phrase of always want to dig into the times that we are into, using this phrase of Charles Dickens, actually, because the book of the City of the Two Tales. They said it was the best of times and it was also the worst of times, and it was the time of age of wisdom. And that book actually describes the lives in two different major cities in the world regarding a cataclysmic event, that time in the 18th century being the French Revolution. And if we look into how that affects our business where we are, still that quote is still valid. It is the worst of time because the effect it has on people's health, the economies of the countries and of people, it is really the worst of that. Now, being a digital workplace strategist or practitioner, you want to move things, it has also been the best of times because we have never ever seen such boost or such energy put into these kind of work tools, these kinds of approaches to remote work. So it's also the age of enlightenment. And I'm working beside them still with Volvo Cars in some sense. They asked me to update their strategy of the digital workplace or digital work life. But I also with Saab Group, Saab being a defense company, how do they tackle that? And also being with Spendrups, which is Sweden's major brewery beverage company. And they are quite different, obviously. So I would like to tell you the tales of the two companies instead. Saab being a defense.
And Robert, could you just turn your video on, just so we can see you while you're doing this?
Yeah, of course.
Great.
Oh, can you see me now? Yeah.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Yeah. So Saab being a company and in the defense aerospace industry for years and years and still growing as a company doing mergers and acquisitions. There are 20,000 plus companies. They are being in that industry. It also calls for different kind of measures when it comes to security and compliance and adherence to laws and regulations, which means they cannot move that fast. But they have been a technology engineer-driven company, so they have had their tools in place. They are used to not being in the office, but they cannot change into more modern tools that make them really, really collaborative enterprise. So, for example, Annette Eriksson, the CIO of Saab, she said recently in an interview to quote her that, well, we can never be a cloud-first company due to the nature of our business, and we cannot use the tool stack that others consider being standards, so there's the rate of transformation is slow. They were technology-wise stacked, so it was easy to send people home mid-March whenever everybody got home. We didn't have lockdown in Sweden, but we still were recommended to work from another place than the office. And also being with the Spendrups, a small family-owned enterprise, being number one in Sweden when it comes to food and beverages, they have a really different country due to the nature of the business they have. So at Spendrups, at the office there, in the main office, they only, for example, they have this strong culture. They want to enjoy themselves and get the energy from being close to each other. So they only have, for example, one water cooler positioned in the middle of the office or one coffee vending machine. So if you need to have some coffee, you will meet and interact with the people, you know. And how did they cope with this? Luckily, we were in the midst of doing a change management project at Spendrups to really make them utilize the Microsoft 365 stack that they have invested in. So I have a great team of digital workplace practitioners there who really has made everything ready to go to do change management, communication, to do education of the own, and then everybody got sent home. So we were really there to hit the switch of teaching the employees of how to use modern tools and modern collaboration tools. What we ended up with was really coaching the leadership of how to be digital leaders. Because mid-March, we were at the end of quarter one, there are a lot of conferences, leader conferences, there are live events, there are sales conferences, financial conferences. How do they use the new modern tools that they had to actually perform this? And what was really interesting at Spendrups is because of the culture-driven company, there was also this kind of sense of experimentation. So the employees themselves said, well, how can we utilize this technology to connect to each other? How can we be closer to each other when we're still at home? So we started in the project teams that we had to do digital fikas. Every Monday morning, every Thursday morning, we summed in the tears room to do fika, just to chit-chat, because we never meet each other else. And then they started to do whatever. They had the digital training sessions. They really explored the possibilities to still being connected while everybody sat at home working. So that was a really interesting thing to see how culture, a strong culture, can really be the change agent here.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, this idea of digital fika, which is something that for our members, we kind of borrowed the term fika from Sweden, meaning chit-chat over coffee and cake and getting that sort of digital intimacy. And, you know, I think back to when we started the first of these 24-hour things, which amazingly was in May 2008. So this is 12 years ago that we've done these, and we're going to innovate next year and create something entirely new for the new decade. But it was really about trying to create intimacy between people and closeness between people. And I think, I'm not sure what you think, Dana, but, you know, it strikes me that's something that the organizations are kind of struggling with at the moment. You know, when you don't have, in some cases, any level of proximity to people that you work with. I know you said to me you'd actually hired people into your team, they'd executed a role and then left the business and you hadn't even met them.
Correct. It's half the team that I currently have. I haven't met in person, and some have already left, and some will leave before we all return into the office. So it is a different type of relationship building and interaction and collaboration that you're having together.
And Luke, how's that sort of playing out in the work where you're working?
Yeah, very much the same. I think to the point of the slides here and Robert, it's really emphasized the fact that there is an importance in that personal connection, and I think the organization has recognized that, and now there's a lot more being done to you know, try and get that to happen. I know when I wander past Dana's office on a Friday afternoon, their enforced a few hours of fun and laughter is kind of a key thing that wouldn't have happened if you'd have been in the office and been able to go out for lunch or do something else.
How do they force people to laugh? I like that.
Dana's like that.
So we have within the digital workplace program at Securus, it's really intense, and we have a lot of deliverables. We've had a year-long roadmap that we've had to accelerate quite quickly, and we've done it in a very dynamic way. And so what we try to do then, we have at the end of the day on Friday, it's called Friday Fun Day. I make sure that everyone stops work, that we log on, that there's no meetings afterwards, and we play bingo, or we play Pictionary using Microsoft Whiteboard, or we do general knowledge quizzes, and we're getting to know each other and have a bit of fun, and then just say thank you for all your hard work for the previous week. Use the weekend to rest and recharge, and see you virtually on Monday.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting, Robert, and it strikes me that one of the things that has happened during this period of enforced digital working for, you know, probably half the workforce, is that actually people have started to realize how important physical connection is in work. You know, I think to some extent you can get a little bit sort of utopian about the digital world of work, and it's a wondrous thing and really has enabled the world to keep working, but also it's not the answer to everything. And have you been kind of you've seen organizations in Sweden trying to emphasize the physical connection in work so far as is possible?
Yeah, I think most of the companies trying to really see how can we return back safely, how can we still get the energy of a physical meeting, because it's hard to keep that up in digital meetings, even if we have the cameras on the meeting. Well, it's hard to really connect a lot of people and have the energy in the room. But one thing that strikes me when it comes to all of these video tools like that is that you actually bring some of your colleagues together. You invite them to your home. You show your home. That's two colleagues that you would never have had shown your home before. So in that sense, it also brings you a bit closer together. Great.
And, well, thanks very much for that. Just we're going to kind of keep with our schedule. And one of the things that the Digital Workplace Group has been doing for the last few years are Digital Workplace of the Year awards. And normally those get released in person at a physical event, and we hope that can happen in the future. But for 2020, surprise, surprise, that doesn't happen. But we are going to celebrate the winners of the 2020 Digital Workplace of the Year Awards on DWG 24. And those are organizations that have excelled at creating well-executed, high-performing digital workplace environments. It's now in its 4th year, and the awards are really gaining traction. We've got a very rich and detailed set of entries this year from a wide range of organizations, which certainly kept the judging panel on its toes again. This year, we scrutinized a lot of the participating organizations. I'm one of the judges. There's, I think, 6 other judges to see how they performed across several areas: strategy, business case, governance, key features, user engagements, benefits. And we're going to announce every couple of hours one of the winners, and then we're going to have a crescendo this time tomorrow, 24 hours from now. God, it feels like a long, long time away, but it will fly by. And we'll announce the overall winners in the last 2 hours. But we're delighted to announce one of the special category winners, and that is the city of Malmö in Sweden. It's the Swedes again. That really has been a great year for Sweden, I think. And their award is for user engagement. All I can tell you is when I looked at this award, it made me want to visit Malmö. They've got what the judges said was that the digital workplace of the city of Malmö has a clear focus on employees and citizens and drive the digital workplace at the city of Malmö. And their approach to user engagement was among the most impressive that the panel had seen, with the work styles and the needs of employees deeply woven into the program. Approaches included an impact map to understand behaviors, broad participation in testing throughout implementation, and a voluntary adoption community called the Digital Cafe. Back to you, Dana.
Great. Thanks, Paul. And congratulations to the city of Malmö. What a fantastic achievement for them. So up next, we have the live tour for this hour, and it's by Jesper Ambrosius, head of LEGO Workplace Experience for the LEGO Group. Jesper, since graduating with a master's in economics, has been primarily working within 2 areas: high-level strategy at a CXO level and leadership. This has led him to his current role at the LEGO Group, where he heads up the LEGO Workplace Experience. And his aim is to create a workplace experience that enables LEGO employees to be and do their best at work, attract and retain those world-class talents that we know that LEGO has, and bring them closer to the LEGO values. Jesper, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Dana.
Great to have you here. And I get to now ask the question again, which this is going to be one of my favorite parts, as well as the live tour. So if you hadn't done the career that you're in right now, what would you have done?
So I think the realistic answer would probably be something around a brain scientist, which I had some ideas about many years ago. Half of my families are doctors, so that's probably the reason. If it's in the more unrealistic genre, it would probably be an executive of a top football club or something like that. I think that would be quite a challenge as well. So a realistic and unrealistic wish, yeah.
Love it. I think, it should be a hybrid of the two. If that's a way that could happen, we should make that happen. Great. So, Jesper, you are our first live tour for DWG 24 2020. How exciting. And it's LEGO. And one brand that we all know and love, that is in probably everybody's houses, and that we've probably stepped on and maybe hurt ourselves throughout different weeks and months. So why don't we get to it, Jesper? Why don't we get right going into the live tour? And as we get there, just wanted to understand a little bit more about the LEGO Workplace Experience. So what has been your main driver to move to a more employee and human-centric approach to your both physical and digital workplace?
Yeah, so I think it's I think overall there are probably two primary reasons. I think one of them was the realization that when we a few years back did an activity-based hot seating cultures in our regional headquarters in London, Singapore, and Shanghai, we saw that the response to having a standardized approach was very different in the three different hubs. So I think that was one of the realizations. Then I think another one is, and I'll get back to that also in the presentation, is that opinions on workplace seem to be many and they seem to differ greatly. And for whatever reason, many of the opinions are not based on facts or research, but as I've at least seen it, often on an antiquated belief system. So I want to change that. We want to change that in the team by elevating the discussion to a place where you can be an expert and where some things are more established than other things based on good data, and whether that's quantitative or qualitative data.
Great. That sounds absolutely. We talk about how we really need to focus on that data, and it's great to see that being as part of your foundation here, and I'm looking forward to hear a bit more.
Absolutely. Should we get to it?
Yes, let's get to it.
Perfect. Cool. So my presentation here is about how the LEGO Group is customizing workplace experiences, both physically and digitally. But before I start, before I start the presentation, I want to start with a story. So it goes like this. Two top executives in the LEGO Group discussed the idea of having baristas in our new headquarters in Billund that we're building right now. One of them said, it's too expensive, we should not have them, while the other one said, no, it's too expensive not to have them. And I think this story, for me, captures at least two things. That many benefits of the workplace experiences are likely to be hidden, and two, that due to a lack of data or evidence, as some would call it, the interpretation of the benefit relates to feelings or beliefs. So essentially, with a lack of data, we run the risk of workplace experiences being an open field where everybody has equal weight, everybody's opinion has equal weight, and that makes it difficult to be someone like me, who's supposed to actually convince executives about doing this or that. So the reason for this story is basically that this has partly galvanized my team and I to understand our colleagues better and to customize our workplace experiences. And that is a journey my team and I started a year and a half ago when LEGO Workplace Experience was created. So a quick intro to the team and what we do. We were established last year during spring. Our aim is to create LEGO workplace experiences that enable LEGO employees to be and do their best at work, to attract and retain world-class talent and bring them closer to the LEGO values. Our aspiration is to create LEGO workplace experiences that wow and inspire us to be curious, creative, and imaginative. We want to create LEGO workplace experiences that are fun and playful and help us see the world through the eyes of the child. We want to create LEGO workplace experiences that adapt to our diverse needs and enable us to do our best work. And we have an aspiration to create LEGO workplace experiences that provide a caring home-like feel with a sense of belonging and work-life balance. So the way we approach this is to look at delivering unique LEGO workplace experiences in three different areas, so to say. One is environment, two is people, and the third one is experiences. So when it comes to environment, we see that consisting of mainly four different elements. So one is technology, another is facilities and maintenance, then we have the furniture, and finally we have the space. When you look at the people part of this model here, you have everything related to change management, learning and evaluation, engagement, and so on. And when it comes to experiences, we try to build in activities such as creating physical environments that channel the Lego DNA. We try to tell stories through environments and experiences. We want to have fun and playful events. We want to initiate health and well-being initiatives and so on. So that's basically who we are and what we do. Right. So the second story I want to tell started 5-6 years back when we built our first so-called hub, which is a regional headquarter, and we built that in London. Later, we then followed with hubs in Singapore and Shanghai. So here we tried more deliberately to link design and ways of working, and we did well. I think we've built 3 amazing hubs. However, from our lens of looking at workplace experience through environments, people, and experiences, here you can see on this slide, it's represented by design, by change approach, and by digital workplace experiences. Of course, also because of the setting of the DWG 24 setting here, we believe there are great improvements to be made. So here I just want to explain how when we did that back then, there wasn't the change approach and the design approach wasn't fully aligned or linked. Our change approach here was also very standardized. We all related to digital workplace experience was exclusively, you could say, owned and operated by communication and IT. And finally, we had very little knowledge about employee needs and preferences. So we now look at how it is today. We are much more, the ways of working and the design, so to say, is much more interlinked. It's being created as a whole. We've also, in our change approach, tried to localize it. So we call it, hub spirits, where we, depending on the office, we create a set of guidelines and norms and in some instances also rules that are specific for that office. And we have what we call neighborhood councils as a governance structure because we want to part the different offices in different zones, and each zone is a neighborhood, and each neighborhood has a representative that then have this neighborhood council where they discuss how we also want to work. Still, digital workplace is very much, so to say, owned and operated by communication especially, and developed by IT. And right now, I will say that compared to last year, we know much more about our employees, colleagues, and their needs and preferences. But so far, it's still very general knowledge. What I want to do now is I want to give an example of how we are adapting the space to agile working. So I want to focus in on that, just to give an example. So here, as you can see, there are 2 types of settings. So one in the middle here is our normal Lego ways of working setting. So you can see to the right, we have tables where there are dividers, so to clearly signal these areas are more silent areas. Then you have in the middle, you have tables without the dividers, so that's more that's to signal that here you can speak more freely. And then of course you have around that you have different meeting settings, more open meeting settings, closed meeting settings. You have where you can do a workshop, and of course you have the social areas where you can sit and relax and have a coffee and chit chat. We have the same setting around the Lego ways of working, agile as we call it. So we still have the meeting rooms, the social settings, but we then have adapted our space and our design to how they work in IT, which is the part of the company that is actually about to move in to our new headquarters that we're still building and finalizing next year. So basically what we've done here is we have added these scrum areas in each of the, so you can see that there are 2 groups shown by green and blue color, and each group have their own scrum area. And we also try to make the environment hackable in the sense that the furniture can actually be taken apart and rebuilt. very much like the brick, actually. So an example of how we try to, depending on your needs for ways of working, so to say, we try to adapt the design accordingly. Right. So,
and Jesper, are you going to go live onto your site? Because I'm kind of conscious that's one of the things that people really love.
I will.
We want to make sure that we have enough time to do that.
Absolutely. I will. Yeah. In a few minutes, Paul, we'll be there.
Okay. Great.
So I just want to. So here I just want to mention that in the future we hope to be much more involved in the digital workplace experience as well. I'll give you an example in a minute. We hope to also have much more specific knowledge about employee needs and preference, so not general knowledge across. And we hope to really have implemented this no one-size-fits-all approach that we are doing right now. So let me, to your question, Paul, let me zoom in on the digital workplace experience here.
Great.
So, yeah, let's see if I can move this. So going online with Lego Ways of Working, and we are doing that in a few weeks. So this will actually be the first sneak peek for anyone of that SharePoint site, is for us the beginning of a digital experience journey. So, yeah. So the reasons why we do it is we want to create, we want to get employees on our journey and their journey as well. So we want to, give them idea of what is the Lego workplace, what is the Lego ways of working. We want to focus on the best working self as opposed to being productive. I'll come back to what that really means to us. We will create the spirit more in a bottom-up approach, but then support it top-down. And then finally, going forward, we aim to also have the SharePoint side as as having guidance and learning tools for people to know how to also work effectively and have a good workplace experience when you're working from home or remotely. So what I'll do now is actually I'll now push this one, and hopefully that will take us to the SharePoint side that we have created.
Great. And whilst you're doing that, I'm completely with you there, Jesper, that it's not only providing the tools, but it's that support and really reflecting on how people want to use and adapt that. So are you seeing that just as much as creating and strategizing, that you're having to do a lot more of listening to what people are trying to achieve and providing those solutions in terms of the digital workplace and ways of working?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of it comes with people are used to obviously working digitally anyway, but to the extent that we're doing now, people are not used to that at all. And for us to kind of like create that holistic approach is very important, because we still want to have people in the offices, because we can see very clearly, and it's not only us. I've asked quite a lot of different companies, also huge global companies like ourselves, asking to what are the employees actually telling them, and they generally, the biggest majority, they want a mix of coming to the office and working from home or remotely, because the office has something different. It creates a different, and it's going back to the physical connection that Paul also talked about earlier. It's so crucial, and we also see that. So
great. So we have your SharePoint site up. I love the welcome.
Exactly.
Yeah, and just to say for anybody tuned in, you can make your screen full screen by going to the View button. If you want to see all of the Lego ways of working in all its glory.
I will guide people through a bit, Paul. So, but yeah, you're right. And of course, as you can also see here, the introduction text is, "Hello, you awesome one. Nice to meet you. I'm your best working self." So generally, what you would see here on the SharePoint is an attempt to being fun and playful with the language. Also, for us to explain, this is not about us telling you what to do or being rule-based. This is really us trying to work with you as well as employees. So basically, what we've done here is that we have created this SharePoint side around Lego ways of working. So it's a concept that has been rolled out to all our hubs, and I'll walk you through some of the ideas behind it, and then in the end we'll look at an example of the feel we want people to have going to an office at Lego. So here you can say, this is kind of like the main page, and we have different types of topics, Lego ways of working, the story behind it, how did it actually, what's the reason for us coming up with the concept, angles of belonging community. So it's really about how do we create a community where you work and so on and so forth. There's lots of good stuff in here. Also, in the end here, you see the Lego ways of working sales offices is really because those are offices that we, in my team, are not able to really help. So we want to give them tools and assets for them to implement as much as they can of Lego ways of working themselves without having to ask us and get our help. So just want to quickly introduce the principles behind Lego ways of working. So basically, we want our colleagues to become their best working self, and we define best working self as feeling energized, in flow, and able to use your abilities in the best way possible. So that's instead of using productivity, which we think is a bit of a dangerous term especially for knowledge workers, white-collar workers. Then we have down here, the idea that we do not want to go out with standardized and generalized approaches. We don't think it works as well as it should or as it could. So what we do instead is we adapt locally, and this is what we mean by not one size fits all. Then a third principle is around sense of belonging, and it really relates also to the aspiration I talked about earlier about creating that home-like, that caring home-like feel. So that's about that you have areas where you feel you belong, the team zones. When we started the hubs 5-6 years back, we had only hub seating, so there were no team zones, and we saw that there was when we did evaluation of that and asked people, it was quite clear that this was an issue for them. And then finally, just want to round this off. To say that here it's really about us taking our colleagues on a journey and helping them, but it's their own responsibility to make it work in the hubs. We're not going to be the police that comes out and tell them what to do and what not to do.
Yeah, and it strikes me, Jesper, that one of the things that Lego does, and I don't know if this all comes from you or whether it's a collective thing, but you use new language. You talk about belonging, community, zoning, your best self, typology. It feels to me like you're trying to kind of create a new story for Lego.
That's true, Paul. And I think, overall, one of my bold aims is to actually create a Lego workplace experience that very much mirrors that experience of building with Lego, right? So everything from the wow experience to the fun, the creativity, the inspiration, all of that you can get from building with Lego. I want to create the same emotions when going to the office. So that's the idea about that, and it's actually a very good segue into the next thing I want to show here before we round it off with a little video, and that's actually some of the nudges we have. So we call them spirit nudges. So it's basically around the norms, the guidelines, the rules that we agree upon in an office. How do we make sure that they come alive in the office space? So here we have 3 examples that we also try to create a bit of a fun communication around it. So it's about, please, the first one here, as you can see, please allow me to introduce myself. So it's a conversation starter, so to say. This is an area where, it would be good if you chatted with your colleagues. This is the area where you can do it, of course. Do you have to let it linger? How mindful are you when you leave a space behind? And the final here, should I stay or should I go? If you go, please cancel your booking so others can use it. So, and then if you want to know more about it, if you're unsure about what did we actually agree upon as a collective here in this office, you can click on the QR code. But other than that, the communication should be fun and playful in a way, so it doesn't really, so people are not offended by it or annoyed about it. So yeah, to your point about playful communication, Paul.
It's a fantastic playful communication and using the songs, because we all know with different locations and different languages, music is one of those things that a lot of people know about. So how has that been received from your employees?
Well, I mean, we haven't actually launched this yet, so that was what I said earlier. Oh. This is you guys are more or less the first. Of course, we've shown it to our own team, because it's not the full team that has worked with it. Yeah, I mean, Lego as a company hasn't seen it yet, so that's why this is a sneak peek.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. So here in the end, I just want to quickly show a video that I think in many ways show that or give you that feeling of how it should be working for Lego. So I think hopefully it sets a lot of those feelings in motion when you see it. So now I'll just have to share my. So let's see how I do it, because I have to share it a bit differently here. Share a file.
Children always surprise you. That excitement of seeing what's going to come next.
This is what it's all about. It surprises me how many different nationalities we are here.
How big of a family this is.
Seeing so many different people coming together really energizes me.
We walk through, we are colorful, it's a crazy, wild bunch of people.
I do love this new building, yes.
At Lego, everything really is awesome.
So whilst you're doing that, we've had just a couple questions come in, and I just thought, so the Lego Ways of Working page, will that be the home page, or will that be something that people will be referring to a lot?
Yeah, so it's an internal page for now. I think in the future I could see us opening up also for externals as a way of us showcasing how it is to work at Lego, because we're not good at that at the moment. So it's not easy for people to get an understanding of how it is. So I can definitely see it go, as at least part of it, I can see that being externalized, so to say, in the future. But for now, it's intranet. It's just SharePoint site. So that's it. Sorry about something around the sound there, but hopefully.
Oh, that's okay. I think everybody heard it. That's a really fantastic video, and just shows the fun culture. You know, it's amazing. The Lego brand is very strong. It's playful. It's colorful. You see it with the SharePoint site. You see it through even your PowerPoint presentations and this video. And you've given us an insight of how do you align your work around that and matching the Lego brand and ethos. But I was just wondering, to you, Jesper, like, how does that affect the playful and strong and colorful? You know, does that mean all your meetings are fun and everything is awesome?
I mean, I would love to be able to say that was the truth, but no, of course not. I think in many ways that's at least my opinion. I know it's shared by many co-colleagues as well. that we're probably still too corporate in many ways, and we are working towards becoming a more playful workplace. It's actually my key subject or topic for next year, to be able to figure out what we can do even more of. I know, of course, compared to the average company, we are. I'm fairly sure we are playful in our approach to work and how we work. But I still say there's a way to go for sure. I mean, we're not as playful as I think our product is, and I would love that to be true at some point. So there's a way to go, of course, and I think it's also. It doesn't have to be, of course, that it's not about us building with bricks all the time. It's really about, again, going back to what I said earlier, some of the values and some of the feelings associated with the bricks. It's kind of like the same feelings we want people to have when they come to work, whether that's physically in the office space or digitally as well.
Yeah, and Luke, do you have any kind of reflections on what Jesper has shared?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not just that kind of brand appearing visually. I love the reference to kind of hackable workspaces and being able to rebuild your physical environment as well. I'm interested, how does that element bring itself into what you're doing there with SharePoint and the digital experiences you've got? Are you trying to make everything in the same way, rebuildable and consistent across whether you're in a physical or a digital space?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall consistency is very important for us to become also a voice that people want to hear. So I think what we do in the physical office space has to mimic what we also do in the digitally as well. Of course, we are trying to adapt not only our language and also not only our change approach and the nudges and all of that. To the local settings, but we are also trying to, from a physical point of view, with the furniture and all that, trying to make that come alive. And we want to showcase that, for instance, on the SharePoint side. It's much, how do you else showcase that, what you do, for instance, in Billund? How do you showcase that work in Singapore if you don't have kind of like a shared joint place where everybody can come and see what's going on. But again, every time it's for us to figure out. Again, it's about the human-centric approach. How do we engage with the teams that we're here to? That in this case, for instance, moving into campus, what are their needs, and how do we help solve that? And sometimes that requires design changes. Sometimes it requires some of my change agents to work with that. Sometimes it requires something different. So it's there are many ways to approach it, of course, but we do try to, as much as possible, to customize it. And then, of course, as you also referred to, Luke, make it as consistent as possible, that what we do in the physical workplace is also what we eventually will do in the more digital space.
Great. Thank you, Jesper. And just so that we keep the time, I just really want to thank Robert Rigo, strategist and architect, for coming on this hour digital workplace and digital experiences at ConSID. To thank you, Jesper Ambrosius, head of Lego experience at Lego, and Luke. Thank you so much for coming on as the collaboration service owner. We haven't had a chance to chat about Aviva, but it's been great to bring your expertise in. And back to you, Sky.
Thanks, Paul. Just to close out this hour, we would like to say thank you again to everybody that's joined us for the hour. And wrapping it up now, we have another thought-provoking hour coming up next, and I do encourage our audience members to stay tuned. Thanks once again to our speakers, Robert Rigo and Jesper Ambrosius, for joining us today, our hosts, Paul Miller and Dana Leeson, and our DWG industry expert, Luke Mepham, and to all the people who tuned into the show and who've joined the Twitter conversation as well. So coming up on our next hour, we have our studio guest, Amonge Sinoto, and also a live tour from Oxfam.